Hey, everybody. Welcome to Market Mavericks. We are back. Mike McGlone, Scott Melker. We are here to discuss everything market related. We'll do stocks, crypto, commodities, and God knows there's a lot going on out there with silver right now. Silver right now trading at $92 per ounce. And Mike, I don't think it was very long ago it couldn't get above $20 an ounce. You want to give us your insights into what is going on in the silver market? I mean, why is silver just going nuts right now?
First, to start with, it's nicknamed the devil's metal for a reason. It sucks people in and spits them out and makes you lose your hair. And it's been a wonderful market. Like, I've known some people who've had silver in their accounts for almost a decade. Finally, it gives them some oomph. It's been dead weight for too long. And the typical responsive, prudent thing to do is to lighten up. Now, what's happening is the fundamentals that are known knowns that were the same thing a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago. We all get it. Potential for the critical metals thing from U.S. tariffs, yeah, all that stuff. I don't really care about the reasons now. Partly because, you know me, I've been bullish metals forever. I just didn't think silver would go up this much. But now that it has, the kind of things that it's doing this year is it could get to 100. And it's probably likely to put in a peak that might last decades this year.
Wow.
Willing to make the call. Gold too. It could last more years. That's just typically how it works. So I'll tilt over and show some charts in a little bit. But I just want to point out.
Wait, let me just interject on this because I think this is an important point. Is like, you know, everyone out there that I'm listening to says this time is different, right?
Exactly.
This time is different. China's restricting this. Oh, there's all this. I'm always hearing about all this paper silver, but there's no physical to back. Like, so what you're saying is that's all BS?
It's always, if history is a guide, and well, we'll just show some charts real quick. If history is a guide, ignore it, particularly for those some people are jumping on the trade now. Yeah, they have to have their narrative. I get it. Good luck. That's when people have been on the trade for, like I said, at least a decade getting off. So on this chart, I just show one view of silver divided by its 60-month moving average. We're right now 3 times, and there's only one time in history, 79 and 80. The only thing and that's when the Hunt brothers tried to corner the market. Silver initially, like I said, they closed that year 79 at 32, and last year's low was 28. Expect that this year in silver. Who knows? It could I don't know where the high is going to be, but where it is going to be might last for a long time. But also, I overlay, what does it take for you buy an S&P 500 in terms of ounces of silver? It just absolutely plunged to 75 ounces. We haven't seen that in a long time. That's old resistance. I just want to show you one other chart about, just look at silver, crude oil in ounces of silver. Typically, it was on average 3 ounces of silver would buy 1 barrel of crude oil. Now it's 0.6 of a ounce of silver to this world's most significant industrial commodity. Now, I'm bearish crude oil. I'm not going to put a short on right here. I've been bullish silver, definitely not going to put on a long here. But this just shows you an example is you could be bullish all you want silver, but certain time price tells you not to be putting on that trade. And the key thing I want to end with is you have 3 main components of all markets: supply, demand, and price. And the most volatile part of that is price. When a price shoots parabolic in the price in a market that's already in deficit, it shifts it away from deficit, just a question of time.
So I want to turn to you, Scott, because, you know, obviously you're online, I'm online. It's very similar to an altcoin. If you, God forbid, you say anything negative about silver right now, you get attacked like you are the devil.
Blows my mind. I had no idea that there were passionate silver community members, like there are passionate XRP members and Link Marines and Doge Army or whatever they are. I don't really know if they have an army of their own, but I have simply said that I think silver looks a bit toppy, and the attacks were epic. To me, that's an incredible signal, by the way.
It is.
Right.
The reason I'm buying MicroStrategy is because people were calling me absolutely stupid at mentioning the notion that it may look oversold. I think the notion of saying silver may look overbought and getting emotional silver bugs screaming at you might mean that we're close to a top. I mean, I'm with Mike. I'm not trying to short it. I know you might be, Gareth, but I definitely sold it.
Yeah.
You know, but like, you know, as someone who's been holding silver, I raised my hand earlier for Mike for many, many years and was buying it in the 20s. Yeah. If it goes to 110, I'm not going to feel bad that I sold it at 90. So
no, I agree. I agree.
You know, as a trader, the meat of the profit is always made in the middle of the move and not by trying to necessarily time the bottom of the top. Now, if you're trying to scalp it, Godspeed. And I know, Gareth, that's what you've made a living on is shorting the tops and longing the bottoms. I'm pretty good at longing bottoms. I'm really bad at shorting tops. So I'd rather just, exit, take my profit, and move on to another day.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it certainly has been. It's been a tough trade. I've been in and out quite a bit, and I've taken a few losses, no doubt about trying to find it. But ultimately, I think the sentiment is the thing that catches my eye, right? We see it in crypto, we see it even in the meme stocks. It kind of, I mentioned altcoins, but the hysteria reminds me very much of GameStop, and I do wonder. We hear about the Hunt brothers and different scenarios, but I wonder how much 0-day options are and the futures leverage, right? We've seen the CME up margin requirements, but there's a lot of leverage in the futures market that you can access. And I do wonder if people are just so addicted to this poly market and the gambling aspect that it kind of creates these snowballs that just go up the hill, right?
I just see monster overbought conditions with bearish divergence. And for me, that's my signal,
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I think, Dave Weisberger speaks pretty deeply on this on Macro Mondays with Mike and I, where he talks about the CFDs on all of these things and the hidden leverage, exactly what you said. So there's a lot to flush when the time comes.
Do you guys, where are you guys standing right now on the stock market? I mean, stock market, we've had a few down days, but overall, things are kind of just grinding. The NASDAQ's been struggling. I think we can all agree that, the tech stocks have been kind of the ones where money flow has been rotating, but we haven't seen any sort of major correction since April of 2025, right? I mean, you've had maybe 3% pullbacks. I mean, I don't even know if we've done more than 3% since that big move. Are you guys still thinking we can continue up, or are you guys in the camp of it's we're going to see a bigger drop, let's say in the next couple months?
I think retraces are illegal.
Exactement.
We're not allowed to have them anymore. I mean, Taiwan Semiconductor actually kind of, I think, buoyed tech stocks again for a day today. But to your point, and I mean, you can bring up my screen. I've got the IWM up here. And Mike and I, we discussed this, I think, just the other day. But, usually if you see a mass exodus from the Mag 7 and them struggling, if you think we're putting in a top, you would see money leaving the market. I think it really is just rotating into smaller caps and actually into higher risk. I mean, the Russell here is making a new all-time high, breaking out of a range it's been in effectively since 2022. I think people are literally... It's like alt season again, right? I mean, you get bored with the big thing because it's not moving enough and start to look for riskier pastures. I think that's what's happening here. So I can't really call a top on the market right now while we're seeing a rotation into low caps.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And one chart I want to just throw up here on Taiwan, you mentioned Taiwan Semi, but take a look at this trend line it hit today. And do you guys remember when Oracle reported it and it had that big up move and then it was the end of the run for it?
Yeah.
Just take a look at this trend line that goes back to 2024 through these lows. And then this was the liberation sell-off low. And look, we hit here, we pulled back, and look at what we just did today on Taiwan Semi. So again, not to say that this is going to be Oracle. Oracle has a whole nother bag of, issues with debt and, $100 billion in debt that they've accumulated. But it just as a technician of the charts, this is a pretty cool chart to look at for the stock that today is the one triggering the rally in the semis, which, by the way, you look at stocks like AMAT's coming off of its highs, and even like names like Nvidia. I mean, I wouldn't call that a robustly. This chart does not look good. Oh, the other thing too, look at
head and shoulders thing. Actually, yeah.
Look at this. How nasty is this chart of Microsoft?
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, Microsoft's chart is breaking down here.
Yeah.
I was looking at Meta too. I mean, Meta's chart is not even close, and so you really see that there's money rotation because that's the only way to explain how the stock market's near all-time highs with these trillion-dollar names that are 10, 20+% off their all-time highs. But Mike, what's your thinking on this? I mean, I'm assuming you're bearish on the markets, right? You think something's coming?
Yeah, let me perpetually, I guess that's a bad thing, which is point out that the NASDAQ's peak last year was on October 29th. We haven't taken that out yet, so it's since made a new high. It's basically just a couple weeks before the cryptos and S&P and Bitcoin peaked. And let me just run you through a few charts real quick to give you my outlook. And I want to start with this first one, if I can.
Charts up, not Mike, so I would just flip those.
Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry, my fault. My fault.
I'll start with my base case is this is going to be an up volatility year for the stock market. It's way buried. And this is just a chart of 200-day movers and averages. Here's Bitcoin's 200-day mover and average. It's rolled over. It comes in at 106. To me, that's a bear market. You're supposed to sell rallies. I would say it's worthy of a short in Bitcoin right now, with closing basis stop at $100,000. And then also have 200-day movers of S&P 500. Oh, that's never going to go down. Well, if history's a guide, and if the 200-day moving average, if Bitcoin keeps going down, beta is going to follow. And the same thing in copper. Copper, same thing. It's never going to go back down. But I want to radio to the part of the big reason I'm more inclined and emboldened to be willing to test shorts and say it with that kind of levels and that kind of stuff. Here's a quarterly chart of gold divided by its 200 quarter moving average, just like silver. It's the most expensive since 1980, but also a key reason I think we should be back up and look to be responsive traders this year. Look for opportunities. To me, the first two opportunities are realistically maybe selling a little Bitcoin, shorting a little copper at new highs. But volatility, this is 180-day volatility. If you noticed, maybe a couple months ago when I started pointing out how low it was in S&P 500, I started at 60-day. Now 180-day is buried at 11.5%. So to me, and also the history of when you get, it's almost the same chart. Once gold rallies at this velocity, volatility almost always follows. And that's a key thing to point out, is I can't emphasize this much. Gold and precious metals have never rallied at this velocity without stock market volatility, staying this low. So to me, that's my base case. Gold's telling me that's going to pick up this year. Now, I want to show you, I showed you this one already on silver, just how expensive it is. Let's just look at, and I showed you on silver, how expensive it is versus crude oil. But let's also point out crude oil. Crude oil is heading lower. It's a bear market. What's the key reason is we just have this massive excess supply out of the U.S. And key thing to remember is Mr. Trump says he wanted lower energy prices. He has energy prices going in his favor. That's a deflationary force. Now we're seeing the methods. Also, a key thing is just look at crude oil overlaid with, the highest, world stock market capitalization is very high. So the key thing I want to point out about Mr. Trump, he wants lower interest rates. Let's see the methods, and we're seeing the methods. And I'll end with this chart here. I think copper is a worthy short. Now, the little difference with copper is it just made a new high around 6. I think it's hard to define how you put it stops. You start nimble. If you just look at it as a disciplined trader, yeah, sell it at 6. Initial target is right around just below 5. And maybe you don't want to risk more than 5 to 10%. But to me, that's what's happening now. It's a bull market. The 20 quarter moving average is heading higher. But on the same scale, I have S&P 500, which is pulling it along. That's the inflation pull thing for things like copper. Yet it's highly risky. But what's the deflationary force for copper? And that's deflation in China, is emphasized by its bond yields. Now, I've pointed this out before, but to me, that's the base case this year. Stay away from the market and just look to be opportunistic. And so far, the two major opportunities I think are potentially kicking in so far is maybe copper making new highs and dropping back down from 6 to 5, and Bitcoin and potentially cryptocurrency shorts on this rally.
So a question for you guys. I mean, I just brought up the chart here, and I'll show everyone. This is the chart of the 10-year yield. Now, as a technician, this pattern formation, to me at least, is a bullish pattern, right? You have your up move here and then bullish consolidation. But we've talked about TLT, which requires yields to go down. Is there a chance here with what's going on with the DOJ attacks on the Fed? The other thing too is, we talk about deflation and lower rates, but at the same time, everywhere I look, copper's all-time high, silver all-time high, even live cattle, right? Live cattle, which had crashed after that deal with Brazil, is almost back to all-time highs. Everywhere I look, I see inflation. And then you have the attack on the Fed and the potential degradation of the Federal Reserve's independence. Wouldn't the long end, the market, want rates or push rates up because of this?
Well, one thing I want to respond to on that is I point out that it's a key thing that's kind of the oxymoron of this year. Mr. Trump wants to get reelected, yet the number one issue is affordability, inflation, and virtually all of his policies are inflationary, pushing back on the Fed. The Fed's goal in the environment is to help, make sure to take the punch bowl away and let inflation get out of hand. So that's hurting him again. Trying to get the market pushing, moving it hot, talking up the stock market, that's all very inflationary. So we'll see how this works out. I like to propose, if he just wants a very simple little way to get interest rates way down, get energy prices way down, and maybe move a little bit of attention away from all those rich people who are long stock market. You have a simple 10% correction, stuff that used to happen, and stay down for a while. Come the midterms, all the things he promised will be kicking in. I mean, very low interest rates will be kicking in, low energy, stuff like that. So the question is how that's going to happen. Right now, I just look at it as all that matters is when you're this expensive, that's all that matters is really the stock market.
And I think that's where I'm struggling with, right? Because if Trump wants lower rates, he needs to push the stock market down, right? But he doesn't want to do that because then he looks at that as a loss, right? To him, that's a negative, Scott. So like what I would say to you is like, where is there a give and take here? I mean, like, what's the path, right? Should he be pushing the markets down so he can get rates down, or is he basically thinking and maybe this is what he's thinking, keep markets keep going up because I'll soon have my stooge in the chair seat and I can get rates down anyways. Is that what you think?
I think he doesn't think. I think he's running it hot and intends to run it hotter and doesn't care about anything but winning the midterms. Didn't he make a quip today that why are we even having midterms? Shouldn't even have an election. I mean,
I love it.
Sometimes things that come out of his mouth are absolutely unbelievable. But no, I don't think they're really particularly concerned about inflation.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to push. They care way more about the stock market being up than they do about the price of your chicken at the grocery store, in my opinion. So.
Exactly.
But aren't they tied together, though? I mean, like, sorry, Mike, but like, I would just push back on that because Trump has made a specific push recently to say, interest rates on credit cards 10% because people are like, basically, I think he realizes to win the midterms, he's got to win over the hearts and minds of the people struggling, which is a lot of people. So maybe he's acting like he cares. I don't know. I don't know, Scott or Mike. He
wants rates to come down, and that should make inflation fly, right? I mean, so just don't think he cares really about inflation, regardless of what he says. I think those are pandering moves. I mean, saying credit card capping him at 10%. First of all, there's a lot of unintended consequences for people that do borrow. I'm not saying high interest rate is good, but I mean, and then saying it'll be for a year. I mean, are you kidding me? We're going to start this now, and it'll be till right after midterms.
that was a little suspect. I agree.
We'll end this on election day.
Well, I think that's part of how we've reached what I view as the end game, that the gold market and all the metals, most notably precious silver, figured out last year. Now they're getting too extreme, and that's the end game of it's completely anathema for our president to conceive of the stock market going down and that helping him. It's got to go up. Yet we've at the point where you get to 2.3 times GDP, a 10% move is almost 25% of GDP, the most in 100 years. It's all that matters. And that's the point, is why I think we're near the end game. It's part of the reason I was so bullish gold a year ago, and I'm not anymore because it's already done. And now to me, it's about the risks of just a little bit of normal reversion because we're so far into this risk asset wealth creation machine. A little reversion is to me what gold was warning us last year. And now it's this year. And that's from already initially taken the first little test at initial shorts and things that are risk assets.
Yeah, and just to go over this in terms of you're talking about gold coming down, potentially silver, and I think, Scott, you mentioned this earlier, the negative divergences that are starting to occur. But just for those of you that may not understand that, essentially, as you see, this is the gold chart. So gold making higher highs, and the idea is the RSI at those peaks should be making higher highs, and here it was. But look, higher high and way lower low on the RSI.
That's a bull chart. Yeah.
That is
what I
we
see
call,
is that next peak where you see those four candles touching. Look how much lower the high on RSI is there.
Yeah, way lower. And to me, that screams distribution going on. Like something's going to happen here, probably within the next week or so, that's going to bring the metals back in. I know people will probably get some hate on the comments for this, but we just look at the chart. I mean, we look at the charts and the data. I mean, that's what we look at, and it's not always the popular opinion, but just it is what it is, right? And it is what it is.
So my take is just a little a follow up on that is I think it's momentum can easily carry gold to 5,000 an ounce and silver to $100 an ounce. And a normal and volatile environment when you get out of the cage like this is going back to 4,000 and going back to 50 and putting in highs that'll last for years. That's to me is what is my base case for the precious metals this year.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm in agreement. I mean, I still think, believe it or not, and I'm still a longer term. I think just like Scott is a long term Bitcoin bull, and I honestly think all three of us. I'm assuming, Mike, are you long term bullish or are you?
I used to be. I am not now until I see some of these excesses purged. And right now, I
Okay.
see a bear market with opportunity to short it. If I'm right on that trade, it'll continue. If I'm wrong, then we'll reassess. So we have to see how this one gets stopped in or stopped out. So my way I look at it now, if it starts trickling down from here, you stop yourself in shorter. And if
Right.
it's and if you get you know how it is, and you
But
get
I
stopped.
guess what
Go
I'm
ahead.
asking
Yeah,
is
yeah.
is like for me, I actually agree that Bitcoin's going to go lower in the let's say the next few months. But I see the reason why Bitcoin was created based on how our politicians are managing the U.S. debt and the crises that could occur. And it's the same reason why I'm a long term bull on gold is because I see no evidence of fiscal responsibility or managing. In fact, it's just degrading even worse. And so, if central banks are buying gold, who am I to say and do anything different? But yeah, I mean, with Bitcoin, that's kind of my thesis. While it may go down because of cycles, it may go down because of fear and greed factors. To me, it's like there's one asset along with gold that maybe has a shining star in being a future. That's not the dollar, right? And again, Scott, you can speak on this more, but I think that's really where you are, Scott, right? Thinking on Bitcoin.
Yeah. Someone asked me an interesting question the other day. I was actually speaking to Gary Cardone. I asked him, and he kind of asked me back. 'Cause if someone, let's say you didn't have, unlimited wealth, like maybe he does, and someone gave you a couple $1,000,000, where do you put it?
Right.
What do you buy right now? Do you buy silver? Do
So
you buy gold? Do you buy stocks at
Real
all-time highs
estate.
and
I
all the
mean, yeah.
things that Mike's saying? Do you buy real estate and everything? I would just buy Bitcoin.
so
And
I
and that's a
let's
long-term
do
play,
that.
not because I don't think
Let's
it can go down.
let, let,
That's what I would buy.
let's do that. Let's have a little fun with this. I would say right now I'd put 100% in treasuries, some out in the long end, and I'd have at least 24, maybe 40% I can sit there and play a little leverage with, meaning, like I said, copper goes up, you sell a little bit, you short a little bit. Bitcoin, I already shorting the bear market. And you look to you be tactical with the other part of it until we have levels I think you can reset long. So to me, the precious metals are so overdone. I would wait, a year ago, you had to overweight. No. So I would sit there and wait for opportunities and sit in treasuries and watch. And like I said, I've already kind of was my
Oh,
bias already.
I get where you're coming from on that though, because like
That's for a trader, right?
because but
This guy's
also
not
but
an
also
More
in
than that.
theory, right? So assets like Bitcoin and silver move a lot faster than the dollar degrades, right? So we could
Yeah.
literally see a 30-40% drop in silver in a week or two, and it may make sense to be in cash until that happens. And just like with Bitcoin, right? I mean, Bitcoin 6 months could be 60,000, and then at that point you say, all right, I only lost 1 penny per dollar or whatever it is, maybe 1% of my
To be more
value
clear,
in the
I
dollar.
would dollar cost average over the next year into
There
Bitcoin.
you go.
So that should be
There
my
you go.
more appropriate response.
So speaking of which, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has had a nice little bounce here, frankly. It's rallied up. It's showing some signs of life. Do you think it's going higher, Scott and Mike? What are your? I mean, obviously, I think Mike. We know it's going. Ultimately going to
Yeah,
go down.
my view. Mhm.
Yep.
I've been saying for a while here, and I have almost a similar chart. A lot of people are calling that a bear flag. I think it's way too extended at this point to be a bear flag. It should have
Interesting.
resolved to the downside. I think if it was a bear flag, you can bring up my chart.
Yep. Let me
'Cause I have
bring
two
you.
views of it that I think are somewhat opposing, and people believe. But so even if it's a bear flag, you do have a very clear breakout, and it's heading up. I think that means that we have the 200 MA on the daily here above. So 106 is where I would really start to think it might be overextended on a move to the upside. But there's also, if you look at it this way, it's a very clear ascending triangle that has a target, much higher. But I would say, still once again, that 106. If you pop over to the weekly, everybody's watching the 50 MA here at 101. So I'd be actually surprised if this move doesn't make it that far. That's where I'm going to really start paying attention, right? So if we don't even get back to that psychological level of 100, I'll start to be a lot more concerned, I would say. But this kind of little breakout we have right now, I think runs to at least 100 and 101. And then we'll see how much appetite there is to short this thing and sell it off.
Yeah, and I'm based on your analysis and what I'm seeing on the charts as well. I still think it could be a bear flag. It also could be a bigger head and shoulders forming. So we got to kind of monitor that. This could be a right shoulder with a shoulder shoulder. Hopefully not, because that means it's going a lot lower than just
Well, people
where I.
forget. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like that weekly 200 MA. So every single time we've broken down significantly on the 50 MA on the weekly, which is what every technical analyst is watching, you get the retest of the 50 every
Yep.
time from the back test. So that's 101, and then you drop down to the 200. That's at 58.
Yep.
Right. So I'm not
that's
saying
what
that
I'm
will or
trying to.
won't happen, but I think that that's what everybody is somewhat watching at the moment. Right. And so,
And to reinforce that, I'll just show you this trend line here. And I'm really, that's majority of what I use. You can see here how this was support, support, support. Then it rallied up, came down, hammered 4 days in a row, and then finally broke down. And there's this tendency for charts to go back and retest former support, which is now resistance before potential rejection. And that's right at your 100, 101 level. And it's also at the high end of this parallel right here. So I think that makes a lot of sense that we could still be headed up in there. And then I agree, the big test starts. Bulls versus bears. Who's going to win? Is the pattern, the bearish potential pattern, going to fail, or are the bears going to come out victorious and start slamming this thing down again? Yeah.
be a hell of an opportunity to buy if it goes to 60. I'll be more.
I ask you this every time, Scott, but any comments on altcoins?
They've looked good, to be quite honest. So I think something kind of switched on December 31st. I mean, I can bring up a couple charts, but we kind of came into the new year, and all of a sudden, altcoins were keeping up or at least outperforming. And I'll show you. I can just show you on ETH, but much like Bitcoin reflipped the 50 MA to support on the daily, almost all the large cap altcoins did as well. There's Ethereum, Solana did the same, XRP did the same. I didn't go too far down beyond that, right? I looked at those. Those are the names everybody's kind of watching at the moment. What I find very interesting is that all of them, like Bitcoin, still remain under that 50 MA on the weekly, which every time, like I said, you retest it from the bottom and then drop down to the 200, except ETH. ETH is back above the 50 MA on the weekly on its third candle now, showing spread with increasing volume. So I think actually right now is the most interesting time we've seen for altcoins in a very long time. And through December, even November, remember the market would open, Bitcoin would get slammed down. Market would open, Bitcoin would get slammed down. That stopped, right? Yep. Bitcoin has not been seeing those early morning shakes when New York opens. It's been rising. Altcoins have been keeping up or even slightly outperforming. So I can't tell you what's coming next. I can just tell you that the first 2 weeks here have looked different.
Interesting. All right. Now, last couple things, Mike. As we get into, obviously, the next few weeks, we've seen what happened with Venezuela. Iran looks like things are calming a little bit. And I do wonder, part of me, did you guys notice how oil was up like 5 straight days? And then, the president was like, oh, no, wait, we're not going to. And then all of a sudden oil comes back in. And so you have to connect those dots a little bit with policy and stuff. But what about, I mean, like, is this all just bluster with Greenland and all this other stuff? I mean, we obviously saw something really happen with Venezuela, but since then it's kind of just been more of the same.
I thought it was bluster until Venezuela.
Right. But on the positive side with Venezuela, and I'm sorry, Mike, I'll give you the final kind of thing, but at least with Maduro, there was actually like a warrant in the U.S. versus none of these other leaders do, right? Because it's pretty much, usually it's been off limits. Historically, you don't go after the leader of a country no matter what. Even if you're at war with them, you don't do that. In this situation, it was obviously different. Mike, tell us what you think.
It's pretty impressive what Mr. Trump did in Venezuela, because that's basically was the dream of Mr. Putin, and he's been in this war for this 20th century war for almost 4 years. He's lost 250,000 people, and the world's turned against him. Trump did what he wanted in Venezuela in a few hours. It's just 21st century is amazing. The U.S. is just a command of it. But I think the key thing to remember here is the gold market absolutely loves President Trump. When people say, oh, you're buying protection thing and you're buying silver, that's just silly. Silver's the devil's metal. Gold is a store of value. And that makes sense. The key thing is, the gold market loves him, but a lot of it is already priced in. So what do we have to look forward to? I look at it as, thank you very much. He's the golden president. You've had the rally. Now the big risk is just some normalization and some reversion. I just want to show you one more chart to end with. I started putting the date 1929 next to cryptos almost a year ago with the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index. This is the performance of the Dow Jones Industrial from the end of 1928 until the end of 1930. At the beginning, like in May of 1930, it was basically unchanged from 1928. It went down like it did here. It went by. It may give you that false hope and then collapse. This is a Bloomberg Galaxy crypto index performance. It's actually tilted back here. I still, expect maybe to get a little bounce. I still think it's a similar trajectory. The whole crypto market's in a bear market, and it's just it just giving you a little chance to sell it so far. So that I'll end with this. That index was down 20% last year after being up 20%. It's basically what the Dow did in 1929. First move up so far this year is about 13%. My thought is, as a disciplined trader, you're supposed to say, thank you, test the short, prove me wrong.
That is interesting. All right. And the last thing I'll say before we end it today is I got to chuckle that the president comes into power, supposed to be pro crypto. Everyone lines up to buy crypto, right? And then what performs the best? Gold and silver. And what do we know Trump loves the most? Like, he has golden toilets, right? He has golden everything. We should have known, right? We should have known. All right, I'll leave you guys with that. All right, have a good one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next Thursday at 3 p.m. Have a great one. Thank you guys to the guests here, Scott and Mike, and follow them on their socials below. We hope to see you next Thursday. Take care, guys.